Hello friends, welcome to the first week of this session of Management Information Systems. As we all know that this subject itself, it's called as Management Information System. So it is evident that we have minimum three parts in this, that is information, systems and management. So probably here we are going to look at managing the information using the tool and technology and the system part of it to achieve managerial objectives or management goals. So in this first week, we shall be looking at the basics of all these subjects. So next few lectures, actually you expect to know a little base as the theory of what we would like to implement henceforth in our subject and whatever cases we are going to look at. So probably here we are going to cover introduction, concept of information, and let's look little evolution and history of it, which will give us little age to understand how it's going to be ahead or what has happened before when we travel to the big data era today. So if you see here, there are few things which we must remember while doing this course. That management information system was in existence and always exists even long before the computers. So probably there we are looking at the age of paper-based information systems, where people would like to take the pen and paper and start recording the transactions what they have, and then they produce the report. So probably computer is been used as a tool after invention of a computer, but before that management information system was always in existence in all the organizations. After technology came in, so probably after the mainframe era of IBM, and if we look at the history of computers before 65 and after 65, where microcomputers got introduced in the market. So probably people have started using these technologies as a tool to achieve the speed for the data what they had at that point of time, to achieve the efficiency through the programming part of it. So probably everybody was trying to look at outsourcing their data processing part of it, which was a routine part for all organizations, to the technology as a tool. So probably this outsourcing was done to the technology, and it's always been used as a tool for increased capabilities like large data handling, and which was routine in nature. So probably everyday writing transaction was tedious for human. So people started using computers to achieve the same. Information technology revolution actually brought in so many changes over the period of time, and the new technologies kept coming in. The people have started using those technologies for business purposes, and today you know that technology is probably been used for processing the data anywhere and anytime. So probably that's the basics what we need to remember while doing this course. Now when we look at the systems part of it, we said management information systems as three separate parts. It's not a course or a study of the system studies, but to whatever relevant for us to understand MIS as a subject, a few points we need to know as a manager. Basically, system is known as a set of interrelated components. So you have different components together which are dependent on each other, and they are processing data to achieve some output. So the basic standard understanding about any system is input, process and output, and feedback. After J. Forrester has introduced the feedback mechanism, it has become the integral part of the systems. So we are looking at system where you have a scope for something which you are doing, and you have the boundaries, because if those are boundaryless systems, they were difficult to control. Few books and few resources speaks about different types of systems, different categories of systems. Some of the categories I have mentioned here, like take an example, we have example of circadian clock or natural clock, where we keep breathing all the time, or We can see the planetary movements, which are routine movements. We can see trees growing, dying. So all these systems which are called as natural systems, and we also have artificial systems like computational systems. We can take example, or the factory in which we are producing the products. Those are artificial systems which are made by us. But basically the principle is same, where we have input, process and output, and we also have a feedback again to revise the process. So we have open system versus closed system. So if you take example of any organization, it's kind of open system. It speaks about taking input from the environment or the business environment and giving output to the environment. So they are actually interacting with the rest of the components in the world. Closed system is one of the example you can give as say assembly line, where the input is given within the organization to the assembly line, and output is given to the quality department within the organization. We have formal systems versus informal systems. So formal systems which are usually dependent on the written SOPs, that is standard operating procedures. Most of the organizations have their formal systems laid down, which they execute every day. And we also have informal system, where the system is actually not formally written down, but it's still working. So probably the system which works between a boss and a secretary without any written communication can be called as informal system. We have linear systems, non-linear systems, and you can find out n number of terminologies used by people in different books and different resources. Some of the terminologies we can see as autocratic system, bureaucratic system, Hippocratic system, and so on. So probably system speaks about input, process, output, and the feedback, which is the embedded mechanism in that whole system scenario. When we look at the information in this session, I'm going to give you just the brief idea which will help us to start our work in the future courses, or in the future lectures, what we are going to do, and the future assignments or smaller exercises which we are going to do. So just to have the basics about this subject as the overall overview of the terminologies what we are looking at. The question is, you can see here in the picture, the question you can ask is, what do you do every day since morning? We process information, whether knowingly or unknowingly, but that's the major job which we all do every day. So we keep processing information. Since morning I process information, whether I have water or not, whether I should take the bath or not, whether I have office where I have to go, I have so many clothes from which I can wear one, I can brush my teeth with the toothpaste of my choice, where there are hundreds of choices available in the shelf. So we keep processing data. The whole aim of explaining you this is, there is nothing which exists without data. So probably data, if we look at the formal definition of data in different resources, it speaks about, it is a collection of raw facts, figures, events, situations or numbers anywhere which are lying around us. So that's the data, and we are all aware that when you put data in a context, it becomes information. So probably we have n number of pieces of data lying around us, and we would like to make sense out of it. So it actually, what happens that whenever we say information per se, there are so many characteristics which are attached to this information. So information has got value, information has got age, information has got currency. Take an example that you would like to know what's going to be the weather today or tomorrow, and when you are given the data, weather data for the last week or last month or last year, it doesn't make sense, because it's irrelevant at this point of time. So the value of information and few other characteristics. Currency speaks about how current the information is. Value speaks about what is the actual value. I mean, depending on the information what you have, what kind of benefits you are going to get out of that information. So there are different characteristics of this information, and as we know that knowing information matters for everybody. Today we are in information age. So everybody is looking at information, everybody is looking at making sense out of it, everybody is looking at taking decision depending on what kind of information we have. So in the organization, or whenever we speak about data or information, usually the resources speaks about different categories of information. Like we have structured information where you can imagine a spreadsheet where you have rows and columns with the relevant information in that. We have semi-structured information where half the part of the information you already have and half you do not know. Like take an example of budget, which is again one of the classical MIS example given everywhere. In the budget, half the part, that is the previous trends in your budget, you already know, and you have to predict what are going to be your budget heads and how much you are going to spend next year or next quarter. Especially with the strategic decision making, the most of the information is unstructured in nature, because we do not know where the information is, how do we gather it. If you would like to say introduce a new product in the market, it's kind of unstructured information, because you really don't have idea what kind of information will be available to you to take decision on such decision making process in the organization. As we know that there is explosion of information nowadays because of internet for last so many years, and everybody is facing a problem. Big data and big data analytics has become the buzzword for the same reason, because we have so much of data lying around, we have so much of information, and we are trying to make sense out of it. So as we speaks about the information, we speaks about the system. Part of this subject is again the management. Now, just to have the basic idea about the management and to ask a question that what does it really mean? So the brief introduction to this management part of it is what really it means. So probably everybody in the organization, if we look at the resources, academic resources, you will find that people speaks about planning, controlling, coordinating, staffing, and so on. So probably these are the management functions which are standard management functions. And now it's virtually information. It's like you have information, and all these parts actually requires information to make decision. So if you would like to plan, you would like to have information what you are going to plan about, and how do you plan, and how your plan is going to make difference. So probably to run the organization, we need information. All the functions in the organization needs information. I keep telling everybody that nowadays all managers in the world probably start their day with the information on the table and end their day with the information on their table or somebody else's table, because they need to report. So they get data, they try to analyze that data, and all uses spreadsheets nowadays or some kind of databases and database information system to support their decisions. So probably preparing the report makes very standard job of MIS. MIS is always known as the nerve center of the organization. The job of MIS is to keep pumping information to all the functions. So in the management, we actually try to be in the business by having the information, because unless we have information, we can't take decisions. And to be competitive, to take strategic decisions, to take day-to-day routine basis decisions, we need information. Of course, all this subject we will be seeing in our next sessions in little more detail. This is kind of a curtain raiser for this subject. So when we have information, what do we do with that? We try to create value using that information, because we would like to add value. Most of the businesses and management depends on how much value we can add to the businesses, to the customers, and to the environment, depending on which the business's survival is there. So probably if you would like to survive for the longer time, you must think about what value you are adding to the organization, to the society, to the environmental factors and so on. So we need information to grow and prosper. There is one thing which is happening, that the changes are very rapid nowadays. So basically world scenarios are changing, the relations are changing, the global opportunities are coming up. So we need more and more information before we take decisions. And there is digital revolution. As you know that because of the computer, because of the internet, everything is digital. We have online markets, we have online shopping, we have online banking, you name anything, and now people are trying to come out with the online system for the same. So managing all this data becomes part of our subject study. Now when we look at little evolution and history, usually it is considered in the stages as like mainframe and minicomputer. It was ruled by the IBM, and still people uses COBOL, and mainframe computers and COBOL were always going hand in hand. It was commonly business oriented language, so people started using it for the businesses. After the personal computers came in, after the micro computers, basically it accelerated the process of decentralizing computer power from large data centers to smaller offices. So probably it was possible for people to take a personal computer and started working their office work, processing data on their personal computer. So rather than going to the mainframe and going to the big room machine which was there, now people started using computers at their own desktops. The next stage was client-server networks. There was a requirement to share the business information even within the organization. So people came out with the client-server networks. And these client-server networks actually help people to share the business data among themselves. So even within the organization, in the client-server age, people started sharing the data, and it was one of the biggest revolution ever happened for the businesses and management. Then enterprise computing came in. So probably people started looking at high-end networks, people started looking at integrated systems and complete management structure. So previously, say if people were using computer for financial system or making payroll, now they started thinking about all rest of the management functions which organization executes, like we have different structure in the organization, but in the generic organization you can see there is a marketing department, sales department, finance and accounts department, we have HR department, material and logistics, production department. So everybody was in the need of data, and everybody is in the need of data. So people started sharing this data and coming out with integrated system. Because this data, depending on this data, most of these organizational managers or functional managers started taking decision depending on the data what they have. So this was one of the age, and now we know that with the cloud computing and mobiles came in, people have already started working with the business clusters, because they found out that nothing can be independent. So whenever we have a process in the organization, now many organizations are coming together and started creating value, or at least they are trying to create the value for the customer so that everybody gets benefited in the process. Like take an example, if you have say you are booking your ticket, aeroplane ticket, using your credit card to any airlines. So probably there are more than one organizations involved in this for one processes. So business clusters and mobiles and smartphones now have actually made it revolutionized. So you can use your business anywhere, everywhere, wherever you want. So when we look at the evolution and history, these are some of the stages which are mentioned in the different resources. I hope this will give you the brief idea how the evolution happened as far as information systems use, or rather technology use for the businesses are concerned. So in the next session we shall be looking at some other parts in more detail.